It's been a busy couple of weeks, I think, since my last video, which was with the Land Rover Discovery up in the sand behind Dubai. We've subsequently, or I have subsequently done that event. I've been to Qatar for another recce for their event. I've done that event that I recce'd using the Discovery. That event's been done in a Defender. And I think I've probably got one or two pictures of that, but it's a bit difficult to take pictures when you're actually driving the car. I've then had a 32-hour shift on the Dubai 24-hour race, which I'll go into in a minute, and then back to Qatar for their actual event, back here, and now a brief respite between car servicing and other bits and pieces and getting my tomatoes cleaned up. Off to Jeddah again for the Defender Trophy event in Jeddah. That's going to be middle of February. And then there's some other stuff to do as well. And in fact, until this morning, I had the weekend free, but I've now been asked to pop down to Yas Marina and help with some Porsche Cup activity down there. Support stuff. I don't think I'll be doing any driving. But it's been hectic. And, you know, in between times, I've been trying to catch up with correspondence, and I've been very lax here. Just because there's been no real time to sit down and kind of compose. And of course, I try not to script too much if I can avoid it. Just because I think it's better just to be, as Kevin Colby says, I've quoted Kevin before, you just have to go on to these things and be you. And somebody somewhere along the line will get it, even if it's not particularly popular. I know that it can be a little bit soul destroying sometimes when you spend the time and effort to put something together and tell a story. Add some video, sit down and edit, which actually I quite enjoy. I quite enjoy the editing process. And that's something that surprised me because I put it off for a very long time. I used to have a podcast years and years and years ago, and I think I may have mentioned before that I have lost track completely as to where those recordings have gone. It was done with me and some other people by a guy called Peter Hall, who's sadly no longer alive. And Peter and the rest of us produced podcasts that, you know, of things that were interesting. Mine was called Auto Drone, basically because I was droning on and on about cars and would have people into the studio to talk to them. And I think I've covered some of this in a previous video. But I've never been able to find out what happened. Podme.org, which was the sort of blanket under which all of the podcasts were done, I think must have been subsumed into something else, but I never found out what it was. And when you go on to things like Spotify, an odd one will pitch up, but it's an odd one. There's a few that are out of sequence. And I think there must have been about 80 of them altogether. I really enjoyed doing it. It was good fun. And that was what kind of got me back into doing this. That and, you know, the model car stuff. I've got a couple of things on my desk here. This is a refurbished car, and this caravan is 60 years old, something like that. So I'm refurbishing that for the monthly challenge that we do in the diecast and scale modelers community, which is one of the things that I belong to. And this dinky caravan will be any dinky toy, you know, refreshed or restored. And of course, the caravan's no good without something to pull it. So although the Rover here is not a dinky toy, what's going to happen is that they're both going to get sort of brown, as it were, coffee colour. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, sort of coffee colour on the bottom half. And if my masking skills are any good, and I can still see what I'm doing, that's going to finish up as a matching pair. And it's quite interesting because there must be about 70 or 80 people in the group, and probably 40 of them contribute a model each month. Some of the guys kindly watch this this YouTube channel and comment. Hi Mick, hi Laz. It's nice. It's nice to have that sort of comment. But I've never really done anything with the models on the channel, and I might get round to that. It's just quite a long-winded process of a camera over the model when you're working, and then maybe doing stuff to camera, and then knitting all that together. And of course, the process actually takes a lot longer than any of the videos that any of the guys do. One of the longest sections of this is drying time. I painted these 2 days ago, and they need to sit for 2 days in order for all the chemicals that are in the paint to evaporate fully, and for the paint to stay, so that I can get the masking tape out. I don't even know what I've done with it. Yeah, I've got fine masking tape there. And I'm going to have to mask up the lines on this so that it's ready for painting. But once it's masked, I will also give it a coat of varnish to seal the masking, and then paint the other colour on top, and then varnish the whole thing again. So it's quite a long-winded process. And then you've got to put it all together and detail it and scrape things and add things. And I've built a door for this because the door was missing on the model, and the one that I bought from the restorers was so poorly made and so badly fitting that I decided it would be easier just to make one myself. So that's been made out of an old, I don't know, I had it here somewhere, an old baggage tag from Emirates. But that's one of the things with this hobby. It's great fun just rooting around. You never throw anything out. There's always use for something. There was an overgrown tree just outside my house, and it needed attending to. It was getting a bit silly and lots of leaves, and it needed pruning back because it was starting to get too far over. So we pruned that back the other day there. But I managed to salvage some of the buds from it and sprayed them with varnish to seal them. So I'm waiting to see if they'll dry out nicely, and that'll make trees probably for some kind of diorama later on. The reason I mention the models is the difference between having a niche, which in my case is just me because I talk about lots of stuff, and not having a niche. I've got lots of these cars, and I have collected quite a number, but I posted 4 pictures on another site. The site is, hang on, and I'll tell you, because it's quite important. Yeah, Land Rover Diecast Collectors. It was a new site that I saw, and I thought, oh well, I've got some Land Rovers, I'll pitch up and deliver something to that. Now, that's a niche, because it's only going to be Land Rover enthusiasts and collectors of diecast who are going to sign up for something like that. So you kind of narrow the field. But I've posted 4 pictures on their Facebook page in 2 days, and already there's been over 100 likes. And that just staggers me that that can pick up so quickly. And yet, often, when you look at the YouTube results, and I know you're not supposed to, and it's just depressing, but you think, I've put an awful lot more effort into this than just taking a picture, and to get, sort of 17 or 20 or 30 or 40 views is may be a bit of an uphill struggle. Kevin reckons that, and he's right, if you don't do it, then nobody's going to see it. So, I have to keep doing it. And I really have to try and be a bit more regular with it, because there's just so many things going on these last few weeks that I have neglected it. And I can't get my head round the necessity to pause every now and again when I'm doing things and make some kind of record of it. It's not something that I'm used to. It's not something that I've ever done. In my younger days, when you had a camera, all the processing was done outside. And if you didn't take a good picture, as it were, that processing money was wasted. And you always sort of came back from a roll of film wondering how many of the 36 or 24 or whatever it was were actually going to be any good, or if you'd got bumped, or if there was camera shake, or there was bad light, or any of the things that could go wrong. And I always remember holiday photographs being a bit disappointing because some of them were just crap. And you think, being Scottish, just wasted the money on that, on processing that rubbish. But now, of course, that doesn't happen because it's all digital, and you can do 150 photographs in 30 seconds and just pick one later. And then you can even doctor that. So the pressure to get it right is not the same. And because the pressure to get it right is not the same, I suppose we've been conditioned into not doing it at all if the conditions weren't perfect. So if you went out to take photographs, you were in a position to do that because you had got your head round it. Now, you don't have to be a photographer to take photographs, and pretty much anybody can do a reasonable shot. Don't misunderstand me, I've got lots of professional photographer friends and I couldn't even begin to match them. And somebody turning up with a couple of DSLRs and saying I'm a professional photographer, it's just nonsense, because I've seen these guys work, I've worked with them, I know what goes into it, I know what it takes. Some of the stuff is absolutely terrific, and just waiting interminably, it seems, when you're a stander, a bystander, for the light to be just perfect, for just the right amount of light to get out from behind the right shape of cloud at exactly the right time, and to cast the correct shadows and pull out the right highlights. It's not something you do by pressing the tilt on a DSLR for a week and then sorting the pictures out later. So I can't remember where I was going with that. I suppose just time. And going back to what the quote was, that if you don't do something, then nobody's going to see it. But apart from that, it's conditioning yourself into doing it. I'm not of the selfie school. I still don't know how to do them. But there's a girl in the park when I walk in the morning, and she's just constantly walking with the phone or a selfie stick. And you wonder, how many pictures of herself does she need? What does she do with all of that? Clearly she's not working, because she wouldn't be out walking in the park at that time in the morning with a selfie stick if she was. But she puts huge effort into dressing up and just all this smiling and selfies and throwing things and, scarves and stuff. And I know that's what they have to do. I know that that's what some people have to do, but frankly speaking, it's beyond me.
About 24 hours, sunrise. 6 hours to go.
The Dubai 24 hours. Last Friday, I had to get up reasonably early in the morning, get out and get up to the autodrome for free practice, qualifying and night practice. So that was a 14 or 15 hour day. On the Saturday morning, I was up at about 8, I suppose. Maybe a bit earlier, but I didn't go out. And had to go and prepare for the Defender Trophy, which was being held in Dubai. That was the run that I'd already done with the Discovery. So the Defender Trophy was done on Saturday afternoon. I went to the site. We drove through the desert. Very beautiful it was. Not without its challenges, I have to admit. And I think that it would be fair to say that if ever there was a case of bank balance being inversely proportional to driving talent, you can certainly observe that in this part of the world when people take expensive motor cars into the sand. Nonetheless, we got through that, and then I did the trophy exercise in the evening, and at 6:30 finished that and hot-footed my way to the autodrome and signed on in race control, reprising my old role, which I had been invited to run again as deputy clerk of the course for operations, and that involved being in race control and going out on intercept when there was an incident and sort of controlling that on the ground rather than from the race control. That lasted from then until 1:30 on Sunday afternoon. So that shift from the Saturday morning through to finishing up on the Sunday was 32 hours or 33 hours, I think it was, in total. And I have to admit, I was quite apprehensive. I didn't think that I would make it without having to have a bit of a snooze at some point. But I did, and I think I might have been one of the very few, if not the only one in race control that did do that. I also was the oldest person in race control. So it was quite interesting and quite fun reprising that role, and there's a bit of footage that'll come up because it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Whether there'll be any more of it or not, I don't know. But that was good fun. Remarkably untiring for what I thought was going to be an exhausting weekend. I got back from the train. I got back to the house maybe about 2:30 in the afternoon. By the time I'd unpacked perishables and valuables from the car, it must have been about 3:30, and then I went for a snooze, and I slept until maybe about 5:30 or 6, so a couple of hours, and then I got up and made dinner and had the usual evening, went to bed early-ish, maybe 10 o'clock, and was up again at 6:30 the following morning, right as rain. No discomfort whatsoever. So that was really good. I've hurt my back since then by going down and pushing people out of the sand in Qatar, but that's another story. The 24 hours itself, I'm not going to bore you with too many details because at the end of the day, like a car review, if you want to know the details, you can just look it up. But briefly, we had 66 entries, 64 starters, or 65 starters, I think it was. One non-starter, 17 non-finishers. It was a 1-2 for the BMW M4 GT3 Evos. They did 604 laps for a total of 5,390 kilometres. No, they didn't. They did 604 laps on a 5.390 kilometre circuit. The fastest speed was 158 kilometres an hour. That was the lap time. So it was pretty good. It was the 21st running of the event. And that's all the notes I've got. 17 non-finishers, 1 non-starter. At the end of the day, if anybody's really interested in all that detail, it's a bit like 0 to 60 times and, economy and top speed and all that, drag coefficients and all that kind of stuff on car reviews. And I've said this before, if you're that interested, then you'll go and look it up. But really, I think generally speaking, most people aren't, because you can find it if you need it. But the race is very good. We had, I had an M4, not an Evo, but an M4 as my course car. So with all that, bristling with Christmas tree lights and stuff, that was quite good fun. And what happens on an endurance race of that type is that if there's an incident that involves, for example, a crash, either between vehicles or into the track, or the track support, or the safety barriers or anything, then somebody has to go and investigate. So they count down and put out what's called a code 60 flag. I personally think code 60 is brilliant because it neutralises the track. Everybody instantly comes down to 60 kilometres an hour and has to stay in position at 60 kilometres an hour, or go into the pit and do things and rejoin. But they stay at 60 kilometres an hour. There's no overtaking. And everything holds the position it was in unless they went into the pits, in which case they would still hold the position that they came out of the pits, even if the race was still running. It lets us get onto the circuit live. So we'll go out quite quickly and get to the site of the incident.
They're having a look. Fraser Martin is out there with barrier damage possibly there. So this might be a little bit longer. Fraser Martin, a long-time clerk of the course here. He was clerk of the course for all my racing here, Johnny. And he is a very fair man, harsh but fair, and Scottish.
And get to the site of the incident. See what the problem is. If it's contact with a wall, if there's been a crash with a wall, and vehicles are stopped, then we'll invariably have an ambulance, and a doctor has to be on call, and he'll go out in a separate car. And then we, in operations, which is separate from medical, will go out, evaluate the situation, see what needs to be done in terms of safety works and cleaning up, and get the track back to racing conditions as quickly as possible. So, belting out in the BMW, quite good fun. Meeting the guys from the various posts that come out, and doing what needs to be done, getting that organised, doing this, make sure this happens, put this here, is everybody ready? Right, okay, send away the people that we don't need, and leave me a brush, and I'll just sweep up this wee extra bit of stuff here, and we'll get rid of the debris, and then as soon as we can go and get all that slow-moving kit away, then we'll jump back into the car, shortcut our way back, and get the race underway again. So I think we had maybe 12 interventions, something like that, 10 or 12. It's not bad.
Ports on there. Most unlucky, Fraser Martin's got the broom out this morning. Oh dear. Always helpful.
I mean, it's always great to see someone who kind of, the race wouldn't run without their presence, being down on the ground, as having to assess the infrastructure of the circuit. But that's part of the job, I suppose. Yeah,
clerk of the course. You have many clerks of the course of the course who are responsible for circuit safety.
Yeah.
Okay, race directors are about the sporting regulations, and clerks of the course. And we have both here. And so the clerks of the course will always go out and inspect any damage, because it has to be put back to the acceptable level that it's got its certification under. So the barriers have to be straight. You can't get around that fact. So yeah, we see them get out there, and I don't think they mind getting out of race control and heading out onto the circuit as well.
It's a change of scenery, if nothing else, isn't it? And the whole...
It wasn't as busy this year. The circuit has been slightly modified, and of course there are now lights all the way around the circuit, so there's no real pockets of darkness, which used to be a problem a number of years ago, because you would be coming out of a well-lit section into complete darkness. So it was quite tiring. And I think maybe the improvement to lighting and possibly the smaller field contributed to me not being particularly tired. Because I think we were just as busy as we would normally be. Less hectic, but probably just as busy. It's a great event, terrific event. Happens every year in January. As I say, 21st running. I've done, I don't know, 17, 18, maybe something like that. I think the last one I did was before COVID, and I haven't been back since for one reason or another. But it was really nice to be asked. It was a bit short notice, but it was very nice to be asked to go and just sort of reprise the old job. It was good fun. Quite enjoyed it. And I think I might cut at that because it's been a while since I've done anything. And whilst I'm not exactly running out of things to say, not much chance of that, I think probably putting some more things into a semblance of order before I go any further might be better. And as we were saying earlier, I suppose if you're looking for a pattern to develop in Fraser Martin's YouTube channel, you're in for a bit of a shock, because I'm thinking now that the niche that I am appearing in is the niche that I appear as. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you liked the content, please say so. If you didn't like the content, then let me know that as well. Maybe there's something I can do about it. But it would just be nice to know that somebody has got something out of it. There's no such thing as useless information. You don't know that it's useless until you've heard it. And with that, see you next time.